So the first exercise you're going to do, and again, you can spread into the other room and be in here, is in pairs, think about 2 things that are true and 1 thing that is false. And then you're going to sit opposite each other. Have you done this before?
No.
No?
I know that you read that. Not find partner.
So in pairs, one of you then thinks of, no, you can say it. So think of things that are really quick and easy to say. So, you know, I like the colour red. Can't think of other things about me. But 3 things, 2 of them true, but that kind of simple things, not anything that's going to take a long time to say. So, yeah, I like the colour red, I like McLaren F1, I like playing football. So 3 things like that, and then you've got to notice which one's the lie. And that's all you've got to do. And so it shouldn't take long to do it both ways. So the person watching has to say, I think this was the lie. So don't make it a lie that's so obvious. Like
on the moon.
Yeah. Got a second home on the moon. Visit there regularly. Yeah, so don't make it so obvious that people would just get it because they would think, well, that's obviously not that. So with any luck, you would have known which was the lie with me. And then I will tell you, maybe, depending on how you got on, what to look for or what to do. But remember everything that you've got on that observation skills thing and what we've talked about. I don't want to give too many clues just yet, because if you don't notice it, it's more fun when you suddenly do notice it the second time round. So yeah, so pair up. How was that for you? How easy or difficult did you find it?
Interesting. After the first time I had the mistake, and then I remembered what I was looking for actually. Like
What is it?
the right answer.
Mm.
And then it's, fun.
Well, one good thing to look for, obviously with that specific thing, because you are asking a couple of true things and a false one, is things like the eye movement. If you just look into someone's eyes while you're doing it, there's normally a flicker in one direction or another that's different to wherever the eyes go for the true ones. So for the true ones, normally the eyes will go to the same place, or maybe not move at all, or there'll be some change in pattern in relation to the third one. There are other things obviously you can notice as well, but when it comes to things like true and false, that's quite a good one to look for, because it's normally people just process the same sort of information. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I know this one, and then they look somewhere different. You can also trick someone into giving you clues by telling them, oh, when people lie they do this, and then they'll actively try to avoid doing whatever you've just told them. So if you say, did you know it was a myth that people break eye contact when they lie, and so actually it's people hold eye contact when they lie more, they'll start breaking eye contact now. And that's true. You know, people do break eye contact, do hold eye contact more naturally when they lie. So people look for the breaking of the eye contact, think, oh, they can't even look me in the eye, but actually it's the other way around, that people think of the fact that you can't, I can't look them in the eye, so I'm going to stare at them. And so it is actually a true statement, but the fact is, once you mention it, now they actually go and do it, and they overemphasize it because of the fact that you've now brought it to their attention. Likewise, if you said, you see how someone's sitting, you say, oh, whenever people lie, they always move their hands or something, and suddenly they'll put their hands somewhere to keep them very still. Or when people lie, they always uncross their arms, and suddenly they'll keep their arms crossed. So you can trick someone into revealing things. And likewise with clients, not that you necessarily trick clients with over lying, but you can have an idea about something and think, well, how can I fish to see if this is correct or not? And so you can set them up with, I've had people in before who thought whatever it is you're thinking they might have, but you don't know, and say, and what I found is that they often end up, and then you say something that means that they will try and do the exact opposite of what you've just said. So it needs to be an opposite, but they'll try and do the opposite if they still aren't ready to tell you, but that is an issue that they're hiding from you that actually might be important for you to know. So you can trick people like, when people come in and they have a problem that they're not just ready yet to talk about, I find they always cross their legs, and so then they're going to uncross their legs intentionally when it gets to that point, because of the fact they've got to prove to you that what you've just said isn't true. So what it does is it proves to you that what you've just said is true. So, and if you think that's ambiguous, I don't know whether you need to test it again, then you can do other things to test it a bit later. It could be the same kind of technique, but you can, it's so easy when you're talking to people, because people ask you for advice and they say, well, what do you think? What's your opinion? What do you think's wrong? And the natural thing is to say, well, I had someone before who worked with me who had a similar problem. And so you can keep bringing that kind of sentence up, because actually the person in front of you normally keeps asking you the same sort of things. Like, what am I supposed to do about it then? And so you can keep coming up with the same kind of, and this is what they found helpful, or so you can bring things up that make them then move or do whatever it is you want that will give you a clue. I find people have become very still. They don't want to shake or nod their heads whenever they start looking around or something. So anything that just makes them do the opposite is a good way of, if you want to set up your own cue almost, then you can set it up by telling them, do the opposite of this and you'll convince me that I'm wrong. So and it will let you know that you're right.
It's
more like this.
So what sort of things were you looking for or thinking you were picking up on with that one?
Well, rhythms.
Because I think one thing that can be a limiter to it is where you've got a preconceived notion of what you're going to try and notice. So if you're listening, thinking, right, so that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So what I'm going to listen out for, then, and then you hear the next one and you say the next one is 1, 2, and they perhaps stutter for part of it. Not on purpose, it just happens, that's the way it is. If that's the thing you think, I'm going to look out for that bit, then when you don't hear it, you assume it's the other one. Whereas if instead you just keep an open mind and think, let's go with what feels right, sometimes what feels right ends up being more accurate than what you think is right by what you think you've noticed or what you think you've not noticed.
I think I started listening for, I went first in there, and I think I started listening for what I felt like I had done when Chris was talking. But you don't necessarily express it happy, sad in the same ways.
Again, I was at an unfair advantage, because I can talk to people behind me and not let them know what I'm thinking. And I can also listen to the people who, because in the taxi there everyone is always behind me, and I can listen to what they're saying but pick up on whether they're positive or negative, the tones in their voice, because I need to react to that. If someone's being very negative in the back of my taxi, I even need to react to that negativity to, I don't know, try and make them feel more positive about something. Or I need to react to it to, keep myself separate from their negativity.
At a minimum, get them to A to B.
And get them to A to B without them not wanting to pay me at the other end, because that's my most favourite part. And you've got to try and keep them engaged, even if it's negative. So I was at a very, very unfair advantage, because that is what I do all day, every day. And I can talk to people without them noticing what I think of something, if I want them to. I can make them notice by changing the way I talk, but I try to keep it, unless they really annoy me, and then I give it to them by barrels. But you were at an unfair advantage.
Well, the next exercise is doing this but with feelings. So what you're going to do is the same thing, but you're going to touch a palm of your hand to a palm of the other person's hand, and you're going to do exactly the same thing. So you're not going to have to count this time though. You're just going to, first of all, say, right, now I'm going to think of the positive memory, and then close your eyes if you want, whatever makes it easier for you to think of it, and then you think of that, and then you sort of break state, so stop touching the hand or whatever, just so you can get yourself out of that zone. So right now I'm going to think of the negative memory, and so you do the same again for a moment or two, then stop again, and then you say, right, now I'm going to think of one or the other, and then do the same again. You think of one, they have to work out which one it is. And I'll be curious to hear what it is you notice. I know what my experience is when I do this. So yeah, so in pairs, you can go away and do that one. Was that easier or more difficult?
I did at first,
me
but
too.
now that after I read that body language book, and I started noticing everywhere, it's like it can't be hidden. People can't hide it.
Yeah, that's
And
absolutely
then I've
nothing
started
about it.
started to get used to that idea, and now now I'm almost like, well, I'm ahead of the game in being able to pay attention to this. It's almost like, wow, no one knows how much they're revealing all the time, constantly.
But yeah, what I was just saying in the other room is obviously a lot of what Darren Brown has done has been what in magic terms is psychophysiological thought reading. So it's reading muscle movements and subtle muscle changes and things. Like he's done the one you may or may not have seen of guiding someone around a market, where he said, hide a photo of your wife or whatever somewhere in this market, and it's an enormous market in London, hide it somewhere in the market and I'll find it. And he then just holds the person's arm and marches around and just says, think about it, keep it in your mind which direction it is and where it is, and he then walks around till he finds it. So these obviously can be really refined, but it's, you know, this is where you would start. You would start by practicing something really simple, just 2 options, and then you might move on to maybe 3 or 4 options. And if you've got a group of friends, and I definitely think things like hypnotic practice groups and things are brilliant to set up, where you just have a bunch of like-minded people that are willing to keep experimenting with things and keep doing these type of experiments. The more you do it and the more you do it with other people, so you can notice variety, and rather than getting stuck on one person responds one way and that's all I learn, it's, you know, do lots of people, and you can do things like this. Annoyingly, the touching one is an annoying one in relation to relationships and things, because you spend more time touching them, people that you're in a relationship with, than you do other people generally. And if you happen to be touching someone and holding conversation with them, you're suddenly reading all this stuff during the conversation, whilst you're just hugging or something. So it's and some, as I said yesterday, sometimes you don't. It's better to not be aware of things than to be aware of things. But these are brilliant things to keep practicing, and it's very artificial, obviously, having a hand touching a hand, but it's a good way of getting started and having a technique you can just keep practicing to get used to noticing those things, and then you can start thinking, what is it specifically that I'm noticing? It might start as just a feeling of, well, that feels right and that feels the wrong answer, but then it might be, well, I'm actually picking up on the fact that the hand must have got slightly heavier or lighter because of what they were thinking of. And so how would that manifest if I was to watch the person? How would I know that their hand is heavier or lighter when I'm sat opposite them, not touching them? Or it could be the hand was slightly warmer or slightly cooler. So again, how would you know that if you're sat opposite them? So you might notice hands, chances are if it's hands, it's probably the rest of them as well. So you might notice them get slightly redder or slightly paler. And so it's then translating that into what else would I expect to observe if what I already am observing as being correct was taking place and I couldn't touch the person to find that out. So you can translate this a bit like the speech thing. What else would you observe when someone's talking? Are the words coming out slightly different because they've got a bit of a smile on their face? Are the words coming out a bit different because there's more tension in their face because it's something that makes them feel more tense? So what is it that's going on? So as you keep doing this, you can then broaden it to what else is going on that I would be able to notice in other modalities, like watching someone. So you can translate it and cross them over and think what else would be going on. So, but it's definitely a good place to start, because you are just focusing on one thing at a time. You're not overwhelming yourself by trying to see everything, hear everything, and feel everything all simultaneously. But obviously, when you do that, suddenly that's when things become even easier, because now you see multiple things that you already know. If you see those sort of things, you see the patterns across all the levels at once, and it it's a bit like, if you tick one box, that means that you might be right. If you tick 2 boxes for that thing, it means you most likely are right. If you tick 3 boxes, then you're definitely right. So suddenly it becomes something that when you do it across everything, you can be very confident that what you're seeing is right, because you've seen it on all those different levels. You've heard them talking to you about something, and the way they were talking, based on what you've been learning about the person in front of you, the way they're talking means that thing had this kind of emotion behind it, or this kind of thoughts behind it. From the way that they're talking and the way you've seen their body move slightly, maybe slightly tense shoulders or whatever, that means there's some tension there. So you've already learned about seeing that is something that you would have been able to feel if you were sort of touching their hand or something. So you can start crossing everything together and making yourself even more impressive, more sort of skilled at reading stuff, so you don't have to keep asking for lots of information. And that goes back to the whole thing of, by the time you ask a question, you sort of know what the answer is going to be, because you're asking a question based on the fact that you know what the answer is, and you just want them to be guided. It's like having that's the common NLP thing is, the map is not the territory. It's like they've got their whole territory, they've got the sort of spotlight that they wave around, and obviously it's been waving around the wrong places and highlighting the wrong things, because or else they wouldn't be sat in front of you. And all you're doing is every now and then taking them from one place to another, to another, to another. The map hasn't changed, it's still there. The sort of territory hasn't changed, it's still theirs. It's just you're guiding them on a different route across that path, different map. So how did you find that generally, those 2 exercises?
Oh, they are very interesting, and need to practice a lot. Find the skill.
I
really interesting.
I thought it was very good. I mean, playing the piano, without even realising that I could feel his fingers playing the piano.
One of my positive memories was having to do with playing the piano, and he could feel more movement in that memory.
And when it goes that far that you're getting micro movements on your hand because you're thinking about playing a piano, that's quite amazing, really. Quite amazing.
Yeah. But that's what it is, though. That normally when you become absorbed in a memory, it's like when you sit and watch tennis on TV or something, whether you like it or not, your body will start firing impulses to the muscles acting out what you're seeing on TV. So you are technically exercising a little bit when you're sat at home watching TV. So you're not completely wasting your time when you do that.
Yeah.
As long as you're watching the right
things. I don't really watch that much TV.
So your body naturally does that. So when you're doing it in your own head and you're imagining something, your body is going to be wanting to act out what it's imagining, whether you like it or not. It will be sending impulses to all your limbs and everything. It will be triggering it on a very small scale. And obviously that's how Erickson got himself walking for the first time, was really wanting to be outside climbing trees like he used to, and then suddenly finding himself at the window when he opened his eyes and think, how did I get here? I'm in a rocking chair and I was way away from the window. And without realising it, he made the rocking chair move, and then he was imagining reaching up to a branch, climbing the apple tree out in the garden, and suddenly saw movement on the back of his hand and thought, oh, well, if there's a bit of movement, maybe that movement is a signal that it's trying to make a finger move. And then he kept thinking about it and kept thinking about it, and then eventually saw a finger move. And he thought, well, if I can move one finger, I can move the finger next to it. And so he kept going till the second finger moved, and the third finger, fourth finger, fifth, and obviously eventually totally unparalysed himself, and then obviously got hit by polio again 50 years later, or 40 years later or something. So, but he obviously was using the same thing. He was just using that as therapeutic aid. Was, I make these minute movements just from thinking about things. How can I use that to heal myself? It means there is the ability. It's not like something was severed and so there's no way that he had the ability. There was the ability, it's just that obviously something had gone wrong that meant that it wasn't being able to work, like just moving a whole arm. So it was, you got to start smaller than that. And some people might get disappointed thinking, well, I think really hard about moving my hand and all I get is this little twitch. And but Erickson saw it as, good, I got a little twitch. That means keep going, I can get something bigger, rather than seeing it as a negative and this is going to take forever. Because imagine how long he probably thought it would take when you sit there for a whole day and then you see a slight movement on the back of your hand. You haven't even got physical movement, like a finger even or anything, and you think that was a day's work. And then the next day, you still haven't even got a finger's movement. So it would have taken Erickson so long to do it, and taken a lot of dedication. But it shows that what you focus on, if you think, you know what, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this work, you can then achieve that. But it's seeing everything as a little success, not seeing everything as a failure because you didn't do enough or something.
If you enjoy this, find it helpful, just subscribe below, and please leave a comment and give it a thumbs up.